my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
My flows hit you at straight 88 miles per hour, that's enough to generate 1.21 gigawatts, son, and I'm on the run from the Libyans. It was a straight jack move for plutonium, and when they van rolls up, it's pandemonium. 1:18 a.m. at Twin Pines Mall is when I can pinpoint my total down.
Welcome to another video from the Thrift Store Prepper. In today's video we're going to be looking into storing your prepping food supply in a small space. Now, I rent a very small basement and you know, I have a little bit of space but not much to be working with, certainly not much to be making a prepping larder for 6 months worth of food. So I'm working with what I got, and what I've got here is this little plastic filing cabinet, I guess you could call it, for want of a better word. I don't know what this is, but it's a little storage unit here, and this is where I've been putting together my little stockpile of emergency food. Now, this is going to be mostly stuff that I'm not going to be living on, I'm not going to be touching day to day. This is just going to be stuff that's going to get left in here and be left for an emergency, and hope and pray that we never have to use it. So using the dollar store and other such thrift stores, I've been putting together a little thing. So let's have a look what's inside. First of all, you got to be having your ramen noodles. They're cheap. You can get a lot of them for $1, and they fill you up. They're not exactly the most healthier things, but we're looking at the worst case scenario. So currently, I think I've got like 27 ramen noodles in there, so one a day, that's almost a month's worth of food just there. I mean, obviously, you're going to need a little bit more than ramen noodles to be living on, but worst case scenario, there's a month's supply of food pretty much there, and for less than $20, not even less than $10, you can get five noodles for $1, so $10, you can get yourself 50 packets of Mr. Noodles. That's a great thing to be starting and stocking your prepping larder with. So in here, I've got a little water supply. I'm not going to keep this as a water supply. It's just ongoing. So I've got a couple of little items here that you can fill up with water. This has a filter. I did a video on this earlier. There's another one here again. Items from the dollar store that you can pick up for $1 here and there, and come in very useful. And as you can see, good old Gatorade bottles filled with water from the tap. Free water supply. You don't need to be going out to the store and buying bricks of bottled water and gallon jugs and stuff. You can just fill empty bottles up from your tap at home, or better still, do it at work in school, and then you're not even paying the bill for the water. So nothing very exciting as of yet. Down here we've got a few canned items that I picked up now. Nothing exciting again, and it's not looking very exciting right now. So we got some ham and some soups, some good old-fashioned beans. You always need beans in some doomsday scenarios, and we got some jam there. So you always need some preserves. Canned goods, you know, long shelf life. You can even keep them after their expiry. They're not going to kill you unless they really are rancid and bad. You probably can, year or two, even after they've expired, they should be good. And at the moment, this is my Zoom Zoom and Wham Wham box. I've got some chips and pork rinds and other stuff there that I'm going to be making videos of soon, showing you how you can use these in unconventional ways. So stay tuned for those. So that's it. That's pretty much my little ongoing project of building together a food supply. I'm not going to be sure how long it would last or how effective it would be, but it's a small space. It's something to start with, and already you can see, you know, if push comes to shove, there's some food that's going to last me for a week or two. So thanks for watching. This has been another shit video for the Thrift Store Prepper. See you next time.
This is a video from the very, very early days of my YouTube and sort of pantry build endeavors, and I think this is actually the second week review, and it is also the first live show I ever did in the days when you didn't need 1,000 subscribers in order to go live from your phone. I thought I'd try a little experiment, so we're going to have a little watch at this. And again, you know, some of these prepping tips that I was doing back then are still very much as relevant today as then. In fact, maybe more so now, due to the circumstances. And, you know, maybe it is a time to possibly consider restockpiling pantries, but depending on where the future lays for me, it doesn't seem sort of worth my while to be restocking a pantry that I might not be taking with me, and it would sort of be a waste of time, effort, and not to mention money that is scarce at the moment. But back in week 2, this is what my humble little pantry looked like.
We went live a lot quicker than I expected to, and we're a little ahead of schedule. I was going to go on at 7:30, but I was twiddling my thumbs waiting, and we're pretty much ready to go. So, welcome to this, the first Saturday night live on YouTube, and thank you for those of you who are following in the early days of this thrift store prepper project, and following how we've been building our food pantry as we go along. We've had a little bit more traffic with the Facebook group and more interactions there, so I'm trying to generate a little bit more interest for the YouTube, and certainly experiment a little bit with the tools that it has available. I did try with a live feed last week, but it didn't turn out too well for YouTube, and I tried to coincide it with running live on Facebook at the same time using 2 phones, but something went wrong with the YouTube feed, and I ended up deleting it. So here we are, we're trying again, so bear with me. This is a process of trial and error, certainly in terms of learning how YouTube works and what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. So as I say, bear with me, and I appreciate your patience. So here we are, 2 weeks into the thrift store prepper, and when we started this, there was no videos, there was very little content in the Facebook group, just a bunch of people joined up the group from a link that I posted in a Marfugal news group on Facebook, and within a short period of time we had about 60-70 people. But at that point, day 1, we had nothing. I had nothing in my food pantry. I had no real idea what I was going to put and use for content in the thrift store prepper. In the first week or so, I had a little bit of time on my hands, so I experimented with a couple of recipe videos and a couple of little hacks, a couple of things that I found at the Dollarama that were handy in terms of prepping purposes. And we started the food bill, which has been kind of the driving force of this. And the food build is for whatever purpose it may be. For me, you know, I'm kind of operating in the sense that maybe sometime I might be out of work, or dare I say have ill health or personal injury, things that I have actually experienced recently, and you know, try to avoid, but you have to account that these things can happen. Also things like natural disasters, maybe weather conditions, goodness knows whatever else, floods, wherever you are. I live in Toronto, and a few winters back we experienced a polar vortex and an ice storm and all sorts of terrible winter conditions all going on at the same time. And it was over the holiday time, and 1 million people were without power. They had no heating, they had no lights, they had nothing. They couldn't cook their Christmas dinners. They had lots of food and things that they couldn't use, and many people ended up just sitting in the mall all day, every day, until the power come back on. And for about a week, people really were disrupted in their daily routines, and we're living in a semi-shit hitting the fan situation. So, you know, in an eventuality like that, having some food that you can kind of eat from the can, or not have to cook or rely on refrigeration and such forth to prepare is always a good thing to have in your arsenal of preparedness. So we started with nothing, and here we are 2 weeks on. By just popping into the Dollarama when I get the chance of spending maybe $20 here, $20 there, we've accumulated quite an impressive looking stack of food. What you're seeing on the screen now is just a little part of it, and I'm going to pull the camera out and show you exactly what we've got and see how long this may or may not last us for in an emergency situation. So you can see the first thing here is ramen noodles, and you must be guessing by now that ramen noodle is kind of our staple that everything else is built around, and something we use a lot and something I favor greatly, certainly over things like rice, dried beans, barley, things like this. Although they are great, they have shelf life and you can get a lot for very little. It does require things like water, and it does require things like heating that you may not always necessarily have or be available to use in whatever circumstances that may be. Certainly things like rice are going to take a very long to boil on just a wood fire outside if that's what you are cooking on, and you need a lot of water to prepare very little rice. It kind of works on a 1 cup of rice, 2 cup of water ratio. So to cook this entire bag, you're going to need twice the amount of water, and that's a lot of water you're going to be needing to cook it. The same with these beans. If you've ever cooked dried beans, you know that they take forever, and it's a very, very long-winded process to get them to edible stage. So I kind of prefer things in a can, and I prefer things that you can just eat without having to heat or cook. So let's try and move the camera out a little bit and see exactly what we've got. So here in the background, we've got our canned produce going on. I've made a little canned corner. So in total here, there's 4 cans of beans. I got 2 cans of Chef Boyardee. I've got 2 cans of chili, and these are all things that have come out of the dollar store and average around $1 a can. The chili is $1.50. The beans are 80 something cents. So, you know, we're averaging it up at $1. So there's $8 worth of beans and beefaronis there. We've got a can of ham that we picked up at the Dollarama for $3. We've got 3 cans of soups that I have there that, you know, that's the big size. It's 540 mils. So we've got 3 large cans of various soups there. We'll give you some chicken, some vegetables, some beef, some pasta involved in those. And over here we have more meat products, which are the luncheon meat. We've got 6 cans of luncheon meat there, and they're around $1.50 a can. And in front of those, the recent item we just picked up yesterday and added to the haul is the corned beef. And, you know, we've explained all of these things. So in total, we've got, 6, 9, 10, 21 cans of food there. And if you're basing your sort of survival purposes on 1 can per day, then there you go. There's 21 days worth of food right there. Looking down at what we've got on the table, I haven't put all the ramen noodles out. There just was not room, but I've got another 35 ramen noodles going on already in the hamper. And these are some things I showed you that I got for free. And we did a little video on about just making things that you can find at sort of, you know, food outlets for free. These candies and stuff I picked up from a restaurant, and I have my good old trusty weed baggies that I've shoved a bunch of candies in this one and sealed it up, and we can throw that in our hamper, and there's a little source of sugar if you need. So, you know, I've got a box of candies. I've made one for sugar here. There's another one for salt, another one for brown sugar. I've got a little pouch of jellies in there, and little individual portions. And what else I did, I got a whole bunch. I made little, like, you know, accessory packs that you can put with a meal if you're making a ramen and some luncheon meat. You get one of these, got some salt, some sugar, a cracker, and some of them have a candy. So honestly, I've got a shitload of those, maybe 15 or 20 of those that I made, and that's stuff that I got for free. That was, you know, things we didn't even pay for. So here, if it helps you visualize, we bought that many accessory facts that they're even falling off the table. So nearly all of that, in fact all of that was free. I recycled my weed baggies, and that's some crackers, sugar and wet naps and stuff that I found picked up from restaurants. You know, there's a whole bag of wet naps there, a bag of saltines, and like I say, you see how handy these bags are, and they're great for storage purposes. So moving along at the back, we've got our minute oats. Now, again, I would pick these over rice, and I would pick these over pasta. Oatmeal's not a bad thing to be living on. It certainly fills you up, and with the minute rice here, it's not going to take as much water, and you can kind of leave it overnight just to soak up the moisture. And we've got these raisins here, dried fruits, that you can throw a handful in there. You can throw a handful of trail mix in, and you can see we've got some peanuts here, we've got some more peanuts there, a few peanuts. I actually picked these up from work. We hand these out to the barflies in baskets, and there you go, another little accessory pack. So you've got plenty of nuts, and these are all things that you can eat. They're going to fill you up. They've got some good nutrients. They've got protein, they've got iron, they've got sugars, and well, a whole bunch of stuff. And as I say, a bag like this is, in fact, a complete meal. You eat this, it's going to give you a whole bunch of calories, a whole bunch of protein, and this is your perfect kind of food to be having in your bug out bag, or just lying around in your prepping pantry, because you don't need to cook it. You can just open the bag and eat it. And these are great because they are resealable, and you can use these bags for a multitude of things, as we've already seen. So there you go. We've got some nuts, we've got some berries. That's kind of our hunter-gatherer stuff. We've got some PB, we've got some jelly. I do have some miso soup in here. There's a little instant miso soup which you can add with a ramen to make it a little bit different. And I got some other little sundries and stuff. I don't know, I picked this out of some Indian food. They're like little potato strings, but again, if you add this to a ramen, it just makes it a little more interesting. And this, I believe these are little potato sticks, and actually have quite a lot of protein in them. But there's some other things in there, just like the spare ramen sachet of seasoning, and I got a couple of sauces in Indian type cooking stuff there that you can use and mix them with something to make it a little bit different, or add some flavor where elsewhere is none. So as you can see, there's a very, 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 very large amount of food on there, and all of this is cost less than $100 so far. Admittedly, I could have spent the money more wisely, but I'm trying to put together some stuff that's a little bit of variety, and I'm trying to put together stuff for the purposes of these videos to kind of show things that you are available. I mean, if we really did want to just bulk up, then buying 10, 20 cans of beans like this is going to cost you less than $20. 5 bags of this minute rice is going to cost you $20. And over the period of time, if you are building your prepping pantry, that would be something to do. To just go out and buy 5 bags of oatmeal, go out and buy 10 bags of trail mix, go out and buy 20 cans of beans at a time, go out and buy 10 cans of corned beef, and just add this to your pantry and keep it going. But as I say, what I'm trying to do here is build a little bit of variety. We've got multiple items that dried foods you don't really have to cook, foods that you kind of just have to hydrate, food you can eat from the can, and foods, although it's just sugar, salt, and saltine crackers and some hard candies, is food we found for free. And as I said, we've got a whole brick of ramen noodles that I just didn't have room to put on the table. So if you can imagine another 35 of these on top of what we've got here, that makes it even more of an impressive haul of food. And again, for less than $75. So if anybody was starting from scratch, or was from overwhelmed, or didn't really know where to start, just looking at some of these items would give you an idea of where to go. And you don't have to do it the way I've done it. There's no right or wrong way to do these things. In the coming weeks we will be looking at stuff you can get at the dollar store, like cleaning products, like medical products, first aid stuff, things like this, and even stuff that you could build a bug out bag from, and other survival items that become available during to what season we're in, during the spring and summer. You can get camping equipment and stuff at the dollar store quite cheap, that those people who are into bug out bags or being outdoorsy that would find useful or helpful. But this, at the moment, we're basing all of our efforts on building a food prep, and I'm trying to get something that would maybe last for up to 3 months. It's kind of like a figure I've got in my head. As I said, if we're basing stuff on 1 can per day, then we've got 21 cans of 3 weeks, and then close to 40, 45 ramen, I believe I got now. I'll do a total count at the end, or later on today, and figure out how many there. But if you had 1 ramen a day, that's another 3 weeks, and then with the rice, the beans, the dried products, and the oatmeal, you could probably say this is 2 months worth of food if you had to stretch it at an absolute push. So if you kind of average spending maybe $50 a month, which is about $12.50 a week on food items, and you just went to your local dollar store and spent $12-15 a week, or every couple of weeks, then you can soon put together a month or 2 months worth of food in no time. And as I said, like, if you really had to, I've also got some instant mashed potatoes and some stuffing mix here, and I would never actually buy these or recommend buying these again, the scallop potatoes, because really that's what you get. It's essentially just a bag of chips, but for $2. But certainly things like the instant mashed potato is very small, it's very lightweight. This 1 bag works out at 50 cents, and if you rehydrate this, it doesn't need as much water as the rice to cook. So things like this I'm going to probably be bulking up on in the future. Certainly things like beans, and the corned beef and the luncheon meat, these are things I'm going to try and start to make a little bit of a bulk of, so these things can go quite a long way, and maybe get about 30 cans, and then that gives you a month's worth of cans. You've got a month's worth of ramen, you've got a month's worth of dried products. So these are the aims, and as we grow by each week, so too does our food pile, so too does the knowledge and stuff that we're trying to figure out as we're going along. And things like the videos and going live and producing stuff like this is a big learning curve for me at the moment. I'm very, very, very new to making YouTube videos, or videos in general. I don't know if or not these are enjoyable or helpful or fun, in fact. So we're trying to do a little bit lighthearted. We're trying to not take ourselves too seriously, and I keep saying many times over and over, we're trying to keep this real, and we're trying to keep this rough and raw. I'm just using this cell phone that I have to make my videos and post and upload stuff. I'm using my own 2 feet in public transportation to get to and from the dollar store, and I'm bringing home as much as I can carry each time, or as much as I can afford each time. And a lot of times, again, it is for the purposes of the video and for the group to have content to share. But we're not going to be one track. It's not going to be all about the food build. We're spend another few weeks on this and probably put together, like I say, maybe 3 months worth of food. And then we'll look at other things that you can be buying at your dollar stores, like your cleaning products and first aid, as I mentioned. And what else I'm going to probably do in the new year is introduce you to a few more recipes in how to cook with some of these items. So we'll be picking up a few things just to make recipes and cooking videos, so you can see how we can make perhaps a Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner with dollar store items. So all stuff that we're going to be doing probably after the holidays and in the new year. We personally, I started this project on a little bit of a women of prayer with not much thought behind it. So far, so good, I think. We've got ourselves 12 subscribers. So again, those of you who are subscribing, thanks very much. No, I'm not going to force you to be subscribing if you don't want to, and you don't got to be smashing like buttons, and no need for you to hit the bell. And I'm sure you understand how notifications work in this day and age, and if you don't understand how notifications work in this day and age, then God have mercy on your soul, where have you been? But still, this is it. I'm just experimenting really with the live feed and giving everybody a little look at exactly what we've accumulated over the last 2 weeks. And it is only 2 weeks, and it seems a lot longer, but this is the end results of our efforts so far, and something that we're going to be continuing to add to. So I don't think we've even got anybody watching this live feed at the moment, so it's time for me to perhaps end it if I can figure out how to do that. And yeah, I should have probably figured that out before I started. Do I want to finish streaming? I don't know. Let me look what I'm doing here. I'm going to mute microphone while I try to figure out how to stop this thing. As I say, no one's watching, so it doesn't really matter. So if you do eventually watch this at a later date, this has been a shit video production for the Thrift Store Prepper. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
That was the video of the very, very, very early days, and here we are, the first video I put out in 2020, and look at the title there, 2020, time to prep, coming food price crisis. And this video actually has over 2,000 views, almost 2,300. It's my most viewed video, if analytics are to be believed. But this was at the start of the year, although that seems an awful long time ago now. At time of recording, we're in October of 2020. Not much of 2020 left. Good job if you survived this far. But as I say, you can see the evolution of the pantry, but you can pretty much see straight away that a lot of the items are still exactly the same. We didn't really change the style, habits, or items and stuff that we put into the pantry. And a little bit of what I'm saying, that each and every week, that sometimes how interesting can you make taking the same items and products out. But anyway, let's have a little look at this one. Again, for nostalgic and retrospect purposes. And pay attention, because I do mention some very strange things that do sort of maybe come to be.
Hey guys, welcome to TSP TV. Welcome to 2020. We are in the first early days of a new year, and less than a week into 2020. All kinds of crazy things going on around the world that we will not go into at this point in time, and leave that for another day, another channel, maybe even another YouTuber to inform you that. You know, as we say, we are in a little bit of a code red here at TSP TV due to community strikes, but we are trying to bring you a little bit of content, keep the channel going, keep the thrift fam entertained the best we can. But some of the things that I have noticed in the coming and early days of 2020, a few articles that I come across on social media, namely Facebook, and I even think that Michelle Dion, aka Eternity73 something or other, excuse me for not knowing the numbers there, Michelle, but Michelle Dion over at TSP News has been posting a lot of stuff, and I believe it was one of the articles that she posted about the cost of food is going to be rising quite considerably here in Canada this year. And just before the holiday period, I also saw an article on a potato shortage, that potatoes are going to be in a short supply this coming year due to the fact that the harvest last year wasn't as bountiful as it should have been. Now, whether or not that was to do with anything with weather modification, should we say, and leave it at that, who knows. But there is a coming food shortage, or the cost of food is sure to be rising, according to early articles. If or not that comes to be, who knows? But designing a food shortage might kind of put people that are in low income category, or under the poverty line. Food shortages and the cost of living or the cost of food going up might not leave them able to maybe feed themselves. Now, unfortunately, I'm someone who lives on my own. I only have my own needs to tend to at the moment, and I've put together a little pantry of myself, something I called micro prepping. Something I started this channel on just over a year ago was, how do you prep if you don't have much money and you don't have much space? And we will have a little look at the pantry, because I've had a bit of a tinker and modification to its configuration. But on the screen in front of you, you will see some of the items that I keep in my pantry. Now, some of these items are what I call sensi items. Sensi, short for sensible. And what they need they have little need or requirements to cook these. You can pretty much open the can as long as you have a can opener and eat from the can. And maybe even, if you make a little crude fire, you can stick a can on the fire, remove the label first. Of course, that might be a little bit of a hazard, but you can heat cans up with not too much power or requirements to maintain the heat. It's already cooked. You just need to warm it up, as opposed to things like dried pasta or rice or dried beans. Stuff like this, even dehydrated food, you are going to need a little bit of water, or more water than need be, in order to cook them. So what I call our sensi items are items that are going to give you quite a lot of calories, some of your daily nutritional sources, they're going to cover some of those bases, as well as not requiring any additional cooking or any additional water to cook. Now, items like these potatoes are absolutely fantastic. Don't let anybody tell you that potatoes are bad, and don't ever choose salad over French fries, because believe it or not, French fries are far more healthy for you than a salad, because bear in mind, most people drench their salad in fat enriched dressings. Caesar salad dressing has far more fat than a portion of French fries. But anyway, when we talk about sensi items, we kind of look at our nutritional facts on the back. Now, really and truly, what we're trying to find is few zeros as possible. Now, you see here, we've got zeros on the sugars and zeros on trans fats. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In that case, you don't want to be having too much fats or too much sugars. But bear in mind, let's put ourselves in an emergency situation. Let's say, there's been a hurricane or a tornado or something like that. The grid's down, the power's down, you can't cook, you can't, get to the store to replenish your stocks. Government agencies have yet to arrive on the scene with handouts in food parcels. Not that you probably really want to be going and taking any handouts from the government if you are in that certain mindset. But anyway, you want to be able to be providing for yourself, and you want to be able to be what you're providing for yourself. You want to have a little bit of sustenance involved. So the less zeros you see on here, the better. Now, potatoes, you see this is a little bit of a dented can. Sometimes dented cans might be a little bit cheaper. A store, a little tip for you, it doesn't matter if a can's got a dent, as long as it's not compromised. What's inside should be good long beyond the expiration date. So potatoes are a superfood. And the other reason they're a superfood is they're one of the foods that you have to eat a very little that will make you feel very, very full. Another item here we have in front of you are lentils. Again, a very inexpensive item. Most of these items cost $1. Or sometimes less in the case of the little Vienna sausages. The Campbell's were on offer at $2 a piece. I picked a bunch up when they were on offer. But again, we talk about seeing as many numbers as you can on here. We've got a 0 on the vitamin A. That's not a bad thing, but we've got protein, we've got fiber, we've got carbs, as well as calories. And calories count in emergency situations. And the other thing about the lentils and the potatoes, they also have water inside them, which you can save for other cooking purposes, or you can use them to cook themselves. And by adding one of these with one of these, you can make yourself a very, very, very crude stew. Not a very appetizing, award-winning Michelin star stew, but it will be a stew that will have quite a lot of your daily requirements and nutrients covered. And again, you can combine these with other things like, here we have, I'm not a fan of tuna, but you can get the cans of tuna. Here's some chicken. Unfortunately, this is chicken. It doesn't contain any nutritional information on the package, unless you can see it there, which I certainly can. But these are things that you can pick up very cheaply. Tuna is a great source of protein if you can stomach it. We've got a little can of corned beef here, and again, corned beef and potatoes, what's not to like? Vienna sausages, again, we've got pork and beans here. We can add a packet of, a can of these to that. And again, we've added some further protein to, these aren't exactly the best or healthiest option, but it is going to fill you up. And again, we look at just a humble can of beans. What goodness you get here. We've got iron, we've got calcium, no vitamin C, but we've got some vitamin A, we've got lots of protein, we've got carbs, we've got sodium, there's a veggie in there, there's a protein in there, and there's a fiber in there. It's a very, very sensible item, less than $1. Most places I've seen you can pick beans up, and in the case of an emergency, these are going to be absolutely worth their weight in gold, probably more than their weight in gold if you're very hungry. In any emergency, one of the most, I'm not saying it is unless it's a medical emergency, but in most emergencies, one of the most important things is to be able to feed yourself. And again, now, why, food prices are still affordable, now might be the time to go out and maybe put a 20, 30, 40 bucks, whatever you can afford, on some canned items, just to put at the back of the cupboard, maybe for a rainy day. And if you don't ever get to use them, maybe donate them to your local food bank or something, if you need to. But having a little bit of food insurance is something Alaska Prepper talks about quite frequently. Is not a very, it's not a stupid or foolish thing to be having on hand. And as I said, some people on, the low income, or some people who are on, government assistance, welfare, stuff like this, money, it doesn't go very, very far, and it can be a struggle to make ends meet. And some people do have to eat on this kind of thing, each and every week to sustain themselves. Here, I've got some other stuff here. Now, these aren't exactly cheap or inexpensive items, but Jack Links, these are stuff you pick up at your 7-Eleven. You put a bunch of these away, this is going to give you something to eat. We've got some ready cooked bacon jerky here. This was actually a gift from Hoopties. She sent me a little care package a little while ago, and these fully cooked bacon is a ready-to-eat snack, RTE item, ready to eat. Now over here, you can see in these gold packages, this is what I recycle from my marijuana orders. Now in here I have dried mashed potato, instant mashed potato. You just need to add water. Now, serving suggestions on the packaging, this is like the Betty Crocker brand, but there are many, many powdered mashed potatoes you can get, and the serving suggestion is to add milk and butter with it. If you don't have milk and butter, then, you're gonna lose a few of the nutrients that they will give you, but this is still going to be filling. You can just use water to mix this. The other thing you can use this for is, as a soup. You can make a very thin mashed potato, and this becomes a soup. If you have a jar of Cheese Whiz, which I actually do have a jar of Cheese Whiz in my pantry, I didn't really want to start putting everything out because it does take time to put it all back in. But, excuse me, you mix half a cup of this with maybe a little bit of half a seasoning packet from a ramen noodle, mix in a couple of spoonfuls of Cheese Whiz, and you've made yourself a potato and cheddar soup. And if you have those little, some of this, perhaps you could break up a couple of pieces of bacon jerky on the top, and you've made yourself a bacon, cheddar, and potato soup, which is going to be very, very filling. Now here I have a bag of trail mix. Although it says trail mix on the bag, this is something that I do tend to keep in my pantry, but alas, it's something that I do tend to eat more than I save. Anytime I do put a little stockpile of trail mix into my pantry, I do tend to pick at it and demolish it over over a period of time. But as I say, it's not a bad item to have in your pantry for emergencies. And this particular package costs $2 from the Dollarama, and the entire pack of Nature Mix will give you 1,100 calories, as well as all of these numbers. However, we don't have a Nature Mix in this bag. We actually have 3 packets of ramen noodles. I crush my ramen noodles down from here, and this is another perfect item I explained to you as a great emergency source of food, because unlike rice and pasta, this is already cooked. You can literally eat it out of its packaging without having to hydrate. And if you check out some of my no-cook thrift store ramen or thrift store prison ramen recipes, I can show you a variety of ways how you can make meals out of this with the same ingredients that all taste very different. But basically what I do is I crush them down, and I can fit 3 of those into one of these bags, and it does save for time packaging. And again, all you really need to do is crush up a box of noodles and add with a can of lentils, add the seasoning, pack it in, and you're going to get some calories. I think they're 400, in fact I know they're 400 calories per package. You also get about 8 grams of protein from a Mr. Noodle. I'm not going to take it off because it will make everything fall to pieces. Prepper Baby and Binocular Boy are precariously perched up there on the thrift store fireplace. It is flickering, maybe a little dull. We might have to change the batteries in not too different, but their rubber band broke, and they are kind of perched there without any support, and could collapse and topple at any time. So that's why we are not moving Mr. Noodles. But they do contain 8 grams of protein and 400 calories, and per 85 grams serving of ramen noodle and 85 grams serving of rice, your Mr. Noodle is going to give you a little bit more nutritional value. And it is also one of those things, a little bit like potatoes, that will fill you up once it's inside you. It does expand, but you put a can of noodles with this, a packet of ramen noodles with this can of lentils, and you've got yourself a very filling and a nutritious meal. And as I said, add the seasoning packet into it to give it a little bit of flavor. And as I said, it may not be very, very delicious or award-winning food or even comfort food, but it's food that is going to fill you up and feed the body some of the requirements that it needs in order to function. And again, same thing, you can just crush up a packet of noodles and toss it in with Campbell's Chunky or any other soup for that matter. But this is almost like a complete meal. We've got some veggies, we've got some meat, we've got some carbs, we've got the broth, we've got some liquid, and again, you could even maybe add in some of the make mashed potatoes and just pour the Chunky over the mashed potatoes for an additional booster to your meal, as well as adding a ramen to it. And you can mix and match. You could put the Campbell's Chunky, add the lentils, add the potatoes, use the water that's in the cans for additional liquid, throw in a couple of packets of ramen, and you've got a stew that will feed you for a few days. Again, not going to be the most award-winning food, but it's better than going hungry. And a little kind of principle that I kind of work to is like 1 can a day. So I think to myself, in an absolute emergency, and I had absolutely no way to get any other food or had no resources to purchase or buy any more food, if I had 1 can a day, how many cans of food do I have on hand, and how many days could I last? And at the moment, I think I got around 150, 160 cans, as well as other additional items such as the instant mashed potato. I think I got maybe 250 servings of ramen noodles. I got quite a few of these kind of jumbo sausages. Now, again, these are things that don't have the nutritional value on them unless you can see them there. But this is something that will fill you up. And again, a jumbo meat stick with a ramen noodle is a meal. Not a great meal, but a meal nonetheless. But again, you could maybe chop one of these up with some potatoes, meat and potatoes. You're not going to go wrong there with carbs and protein. Certainly in an emergency. Now, these are $3 a piece. They're not exactly cheap, but they are very, very good sausages. I have snacked on these, and can tell you they're very, 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 very good, and maybe something that you might pass, when you're at your local convenience store buying your lottery tickets or cigarettes or zigzag papers or whatever. whenever you're at your convenience store. Usually these are things that you see on the counter and maybe overlook, but you know, in the times of an emergency, this is again worth its weight in gold. $3 that it costs. And you know, maybe don't buy a lottery ticket, buy a meat stick, put it in the cupboard for emergencies. So that's a little bit of a look at some of the items that I do have in my pantry. And as I did mention, I got other stuff. I got a couple of bags of big bags of oatmeal that, and I went for the minute oats again, because they don't take as much cooking. You can just hydrate them with a little bit of water. I also have dried milk. I have some, you know, soup bases, some instant pancake mix, stuff like this. And again, like stuff like instant pancake mix, you don't necessarily have to use it for its pancake mix. It is powdered egg, it is powdered milk. You can add it to you know, a couple of spoonfuls in with your ramen to thicken up the broth, and it's going to add a little bit more protein and calcium to that dish. So what I'm going to do is hit you on pause, put all my stuff back in the pantry, and give you a little looky look, and maybe we'll talk a little bit how, you know, maybe over a week you could put together, you know, your emergency, you know, in the case of emergency, how you could feed yourself over a week. As we've already mentioned, you know, you could put 3 cans together with a couple of bags of ramen noodle to make yourself a stew that will feed you, or maybe, you know, a family of 3 or 4, it will give them a meal. But if you're on your own, that's going to give you maybe 4 or 5 meals that you can live off of 1 meal a day. And in an emergency situation, maybe it's not going to be possible to eat 3 meals a day, and if you can eat only once a day, that's better than not eating a day. And that's kind of one of the comforts you might have to get used to doing it, should we ever find ourselves in an apocalyptic shit hitting the fan situation. But more likelihood, you know, you may be out of work, you may have personal injury or sickness, it might not see you being able to work, it may not see the funds coming in, and having a few cans in ramen noodles and meat sticks and beef jerky in the back of the cupboard, or in a little pantry like I have for myself, or, you know, whatever storage units you use to keep your preps in, that's going to come in extremely useful, and is certainly going to be one less thing to worry about, and a weight off the mind to not have to, you know, worry about having to feed yourself, as well as all the other things that you may have going on in your own personal situation. So as I said, I'm going to put you on hold. We'll have a little look at what I got on hand at the pantry and the recent modifications, and then we're going to wrap it up. So here you go, folks. This is what the pantry is looking like now. Give you a little scan there. We will get a bit of a distant shot or panoramic view before we finish this, but as you can see, I've pretty much just removed everything from side to side. So we've got the boxes over there next to my I could hang my coats, and some clothes are up in there. It's like a little closet space. So we shoved the boxes up there, and as you can see at the very bottom, let's get in closer, we got 2 cases of MREs there, and there's 12 in each. There's 24 MREs there. That's almost a month's worth of food, and some of them do contain multiple entrees that at a push you could sorry, I just found a sock. Actually found 2 socks, so result, lost those, but anyway, that's going to provide me at least a month's worth of food if I had to stretch it out. As I was saying, some of them do have multiple entrees inside that you could have 1 a day if you really had to stretch this stuff out. But 1 MRE a day, that's going to give me a lot of dense calories, nutrients, carbs, calories, and protein, and military grade, and I'm not so sure about the civilian grade MREs. They're actually designed to kind of sustain you for quite a little period of time. You may notice if you've ever eaten them. I sure have noticed in some of my many MRE reviews to date that you may be a little bit bunged up in meals that are ready to eat, become meals that refuse to exit. You may find some anaconda-sized turds 3 days later leaving your body after consuming an MRE. But in the terms of an emergency, that is going to be absolutely golden, because it's going to kind of stay in your system for a little longer and fuel the body that much longer than kind of empty calories. Now, the bottom 3 tubs on the right-hand side there, that's all ramen, as well as there's actually 5 full vendor cases of ramen there with 24 packs in each one. And each one of these little trail mix packages contains 3 individual ramen. I think there's like 18 in each tub, as well as some other repackaged ramen in there. I use some slightly bigger mylar bags as well, and there's a few kind of fancy different brands name ramens that were on offer, but there's another 30 or so ramen in the bottom of that. On this side at the bottom, I kind of got chips, like some banana chips. That's a fruit, some dry banana chips, some kind of bar snack type crackers, pretzels, nuts things, plantain chips, things like that, crunchy kind of stuff that also are pretty calorie and a little bit nutritionally dense, especially kind of the plantain chips. They're quite a wonderful source of nutrients. In this one, we've got like oatmeals, breakfast type stuff, some muesli, dried milk, things like that. I've showed you this before. It's probably same old for some of you longer watchers of my videos, but some of you that may be new to TSP TV, this is might be the first time you've ever seen the pantry. In here I've kind of got cookies, crackers, Harvest Valley. They Harvest Valley? I think they are the Harvest Valley kind of granola bars, a couple of bags of peanuts at the bottom there. This tub was full of trail mix and the peanuts, but I've kind of systematically demolished the 4 kilos of trail mix that was inside. Got about half a bag of that left that I'll probably polish off at some point. This one here, you've seen the gold packages. That's my Betty Crocker. There's probably about 15 of those which have 4 servings of mashed potato in each, you know, so there's quite a lot of instant mashed potato there. I could even maybe think about taking all of the mashed potato out of the smaller bags and put them. I've got some more of the larger trail mix bags. This one on top is what I kind of keep my recycled repackaging in, so like the trail mix bags that I use for my ramen, and the gold packaging that I save from my marijuana deliveries that I put my potatoes in. I keep that there because it can always come in handy. So I kind of think it looks a little bit neater than it did before. This was the initial unit that I started my project with just over a year ago, and maybe I'll put a link to the video in and do some editing to other videos that may be of interest on this subject. But this is where it all started just over a year ago, and I think I come back one day with around $20 or $40 worth of items that I spent at the Dollarama and the No Frills, and I try not to buy items that are too expensive. You know, I don't think anything costs over $3 in this pantry, with the exception of maybe the meat sticks that I have, which are in the top here. I don't know if you can remember the meat sticks there. Back in the summer we had some fun with those, but I have seen these on offer for $4 at the No Frills, but they were about $5 or $6 I think when I bought them. But there's 15 servings of Espoloni, I'm guessing would be the equivalent, or maybe just like a large hot dog, perhaps. In here we've got some corned beef, some chicken, these little kind of pickled vegetables, because they're also things that you can just toss in with a ramen for extra flavor, and a few nutritional extras, beans in wieners, some kind of boyardee stuff there. These again are great. Sometimes you can get the kids versions that have extra servings of veggies thrown in, hidden kind of thing. If you can get those there, they're probably a little bit more sensible than just these. But iron, fiber, protein, carbs, all covered in a can of boyardee, more beans and stuff like that. On the top, luncheon meat, kind of the cheap Spam equivalent, the Rooster brand, which is quite popular here in Canada, and this was from the Dollarama, their version. And at the bottom here, we've got some cans of ham, just like Michelle Can Ham, one of our Wench Wrench moderators. I've got some cans of peaches, some veggies, refried beans, and chili in the bottom of there, as well as a bunch of ham. So you can see, although it doesn't take up that much space, there's at least a month's worth of food, maybe more than a month's worth of food in just that one container. And if you just had room to fit that, that wouldn't be a bad place to start. And this is what I refer to as a micro pantry. You know, this is a little plastic storage unit you could probably pick up at your Target or Walmart, or maybe a Michael's or something like that, or maybe even on the side of the street. People do tend to chuck this stuff out, curb alert type things. But, you know, you can see how I've utilized that there as my initial pantry. And over the year, it grew and grew and grew. So we needed additional storage space. These containers came from the dollar store. They were $4, or they actually rose to $4. I think they were $3.50 when I first bought my initial ones. The cases of MREs are actually past their expiration now. They went out of date in October 2019. But I picked them up for $35 a case. That's 12 MREs for $35, around $3 a piece. In this unit I picked up kind of just before Christmas as part of the TSP 1-year anniversary. Unfortunately, we then entered a period of community strike. We couldn't upload, post, or do anything, so kind of put a little bit of a halt on those proceedings. But this was a unit I picked up from Walmart. It's pretty full, but not full. You can see in the top there. I don't want to open it up because it doesn't slide, but we've got room in the top. So basically, kind of what we can do, like we've done here, is put find some items that we can fit on top of each one of those drawers. This one here, that's kind of got my seasoning, some lemon lime juice, a little can of V8. There's the cheese whiz I mentioned, a soup broth, and again, this is in a package. Did initially marijuana come in? Ziploc Mylar. Now it's got soup base in it. This is the powdered pancake mix that I mentioned. And again, this is powdered milk, powdered eggs. We're not going to necessarily be making pancakes with that. In an emergency, we can use that to thicken up soups and broths or some kind of crude stew. V8 probably should get more of these. These are great. You know, you can just, with one can of this poured into a packet of ramen noodles, you can hydrate the noodles with that can of V8, and then on top of that, you get all the goodies that are contained in a V8 can. As I said, it's just some seasonings there to make things taste better. In the top, I've got my MRE tray and a little bit of stick in there, some knives and stuff, a cutting board, things, cutlery, things I use to eat, some takeout containers that also can be used as plates. And I don't know if you can see there's a whole bunch of MRE accessory packets that I didn't use during the almost out-of-date MRE reviews that I did, because they're exactly the same in each and every ration. So let me kind of just zoom out a little bit. And there you can see how much kind of space it does take up. This is my room. There's my fan, little mirror. You can see baby peas, therapy like that. Let's just go and show you something else as well, quickly, if we can do this. I'm not sure. Yeah, there we are. The Chia Pet. Danielle, there you go. I had to forget which wench French it was. But Danielle Howard, bless her, she sent me a little Christmas present, and it was a Chia Pet. And you can see he's starting to grow a little bit. So there he is. And I put him by the natural light, so it kind of simulates a little bit of sunlight for him. So he's starting to grow. That's a good thing. As I can say, there is the pantry. There's where I sleep. And here is the TSP studio. And the reason this can of lentils has been left out is actually I can't fit it in there. It's an extra can that was squashed up in the side. So it's been a little bit of a long and boring video about nothing for many of you, and some of you may have seen this content before, but just as I recycle packaging, I can also recycle content. But as I did mention at the start of this video, that they're saying that 2020 might be a period of time that might see food prices rise and maybe items missing from your shelves at your grocery stores. Certainly it was something we did get to see and become quite a familiar sight on social media news feeds during the summer last year, that many items were missing, and coincidentally many of those items that were missing from Walmart's, and they always seem to be from Walmart's, were Del Monte items. And I can't remember exactly what was going on with Del Monte last year, but there was something going on a little bit more than just these items being out of stock at stores. I think there was some subliminal messaging and advertising going on, because shill operations operate on many levels. Some of the things that you share on Facebook or Instagram did originate from a shill account, not necessarily a real life person. But getting a little bit off topic and digressing there, but trying to bring that into some corner content that, you know, I'm a real person. I'm doing this YouTube channel as a little bit of fun, a little bit of a hobby, a little bit of something to pass the time, as much as it is purposeful. You know, it's kind of multi-purpose. If anything, I'm actually benefiting in the long run. I've put together quite a substantial pantry, as you can see, and you can follow that progress from day one right up to this particular video if you so desire to do so, and binge watch on how to build a micro sensi pantry and do some micro prepping of your own in this coming year. And part of the lesson that was involved with this little project in this channel in my pantry build was the dollar store is always a place where prices seem to remain the same. If you're lucky to have a Dollar Tree where items actually do cost only $1, unlike Dollarama where you do struggle to find items that cost $1, but they are usually genuinely a little less than maybe your big name brand store. They're not always the cheapest option, but they always are consistently cheap, and they are usually always consistently stocked with very familiar and regular items. There's not going to be a huge variety there, but you really can go to your dollar store as a one-stop, inexpensive prepping point, I guess, or prepping store if you need, or for all your prepping, not just food. They have lots of other items, cleaning essentials, medical items, personal hygiene. And they've even put together a bug-out bag with items solely bought from Dollarama. The only item that wasn't from Dollarama was the bag itself, and that was a bag I happened to find on the street during some treasure hunting I did way back in the summer, which seems a long time ago, in the dark, miserable months of winter. And it is early January. The year is less than a week on, and it is some time before we see the green leaves return to the trees and a bit of life and bloomage going on. It's very dark, grey and miserable at the moment, and January and February can notoriously be the worst months of winter in my short time in Canada. Well, that's not that short, nearly 8 years now, but again, going a little bit off topic and digressing, but some of you do just like to hear me talk, so sometimes I just talk for the sake of talking, for those of you that enjoy that kind of thing. But that's what I'm saying, that we're getting, there could be a possible shortage of food in the moment. Why don't you make it your New Year's resolution to maybe forget about joining the gym or getting Netflix or Disney Plus as a little treat? Start putting $10 a week into better use. You know, maybe don't buy lottery tickets. Go to your local dollar store or go to your local inexpensive grocery store and put that money to better use on buying canned or long-term storage items. You never know when you might need it, and in my time in Canada, through being out of work due to seasonal jobs, personal injury or illness, I've found myself in situations when there really has been nothing in the pantry to feed myself, as well as nothing coming in terms of source of income in order to purchase items to put in the pantry. A little bit of a conundrum, and know only too well that had I had half of the the food that I have now on hand in those times of crisis or my own personal shit hitting the fan emergencies, that I would have been a lot better situated, or certainly a lot better fed than I was in those days when I didn't have any of the items that I now have on hand. And as I said, over a period of year, I've managed to put this together. But if you really, really wanted to sacrifice $100 and go to your dollar store, you could quite easily put together a decent amount of food supply that may be able to last you a month or more. So that's it, folks. I have rambled on for way more than I anticipated in this video about nothing, but it is a little bit of an introduction and maybe reason to start a New Year's resolution of your own, and rather than start something that you're not going to continue with, start putting a little bit of money towards building yourself some food insurance or a micro pantry of your own. Thanks for watching, people. This is a shit video production for TSP TV. We will see you in the next one, hopefully, unless we get terminated before then due to community strikes. But if we don't, we will see you again. Keep safe and stay thrifty, people. Take it easy.
So this is what the pantry is looking like today, and I did actually do a video a couple of weeks back, maybe 3 or 4, thinking about it. Time does seem to stand still during the covidian times, but as I said, guys, this is what the pantry is looking like. This is 7 months after the lockdown was announced, and pretty much for the duration of that time I have been sustaining myself primarily off of items in my pantry, as well as kind of every sort of month, I guess. I do a little bit of a top up for like fresh produce in something, that is been removed as a little perk of my employment, was the fact that when I worked in kitchens I got to eat for free. So for 5-6 days of the week, sometimes depending on schedules and times of the year, I had access to a fully stocked professional restaurant kitchen, and used to eat quite well and healthily. And maybe you saw a couple of my sandwich shop videos that I did make and have a little bit of fun with during quiet times with the girls at work. Bless them. I do miss my work harem, because I didn't just have a work wife, I had like several work wives, and as I said, a little bit of a work harem, and I do miss the spirit and energy of those girls. They did give me a little bit of a boost, as well as some other things after work parties sometimes. But never mind, moving back to the pantry. Here it is as it stands today, and it's still pretty stocked. I mean, if or not this would last for longer than a couple of months or more, who knows, but it has sustained me for around 7 months, as I said, alternating in between sort of fresh stuff that I do pick up, which is mostly sort of eggs and potatoes. Occasionally I do make up a batch of super stew. I did put a video that, and there are some links and descriptions and photos of some of my recipes in this video, you may have noticed if you have been watching along. But as I said, sort of making super stews, I grab a can of beans, I grab a can of potatoes in sort of simple, what I call prepper stews, or or thrift store prepper stews, if you like. Would be, you grab a can of soup, you grab a can of potatoes, you grab a can of beans, grab a couple of packets of ramen, or maybe if you've got some cooked rice or even couscous. All good things that you can sort of throw into a stew, into the pot to sort of bulk it up, and you do have a pretty nutritious and not so bad tasting stew, and it will fill you up in sort of 3 cans of the can of potatoes, can of soup, and a can of beans, and sort of maybe even 3 ramens, 3 the rules of 3. That will almost last you for 3 days or more, or you will be able to certainly be able to feed maybe 3 people with that meal. And bearing in mind that a can of beans is $1, can of potatoes is $1, can of soup is maybe $1.50, $2, let's say $2 for argument. So we've got $4, and then 3 ramens would be less than $1. So for $5, you could literally feed yourself for 4 days. And when I talk about 1 can a day, and some people, you can't live off 1 can of food a day, but you could live a lot longer on 1 can of food a day than without 1 can a day. And when I sort of talk about this could last you for maybe 3-4 months, that would be at the very, very extreme that you would be eating just maybe one item a day if you really had to. If it got to that stage of depression in apocalyptic disaster around you, that there really was nothing left. It was in the darkest midst of winter and you didn't know how long it was going to be before you could get out and maybe forage for food or whatever. And you really, really, really had to, you can sort of make food last as long as you possibly can. When I look at emergency prepping in ways that I've had to spread my food out when I've not had any income or stuff like that, then I will kind of put myself to 1 can a day, and then you know what, you've got plenty of ramen, so 1 can of ramen, 1 can and 1 ramen a day will kind of provide me with a little bit of calories and a little bit of sustenance. And as I said, that's going to keep you alive a lot longer than not having 1 can of ramen, 1 packet of ramen and 1 can of soup, if you feel me. But kind of how I work it out is, as I said, if you were sort of 1 item of food a day, and then depending on how many items of food you have, so if I have 30 packets of ramen, then that essentially is a ramen a day for a month. That is a month's worth of food. If I have 30 cans of soup, that's a month's worth of soup. So if you kind of add 30 cans of soup, 30 cans of potatoes, 30 cans of boyardee, etc., you get the picture. Then each one of those 30 units would represent a month's worth of food. Then you can it's like kind of square footage and sort of stuff, although it may be in a 40-foot space. It's actually 400 square feet when you put it on your blueprints and stuff. But anyway, I don't want to get too carried away, but that's kind of what I mean when I have 1 can a day. And if you've got 1 item of food to eat a day, then that's better than having no items of food to eat a day. In simple sensi prepping, as I said, up until 7 months ago, I used to have a job. I used to work quite a lot of time, a lot of hours, and more time was at work or going to and from work than I ever was at home. So back in those simple, humble days when I only had a couple of days to myself, going to the store, grabbing the groceries, coming back, making videos, editing and stuff like that, I didn't really have time for, and I certainly didn't have a lot of time to sort of maybe bring you some of the content I am in recent times. But in recent times, I don't have a steady income, and the reason I put all this together when I did have a steady income and go into the store twice a week sometimes, or once every 2 weeks, depending on my mood swings at the moment, but regularly prepping. And just because I'm not regularly prepping now isn't because I've stopped being a prepper or I've lost interest in prepping. I've already prepped for this eventuality, and this has been a real life drill in many ways, in a kind of real time experiment. That when you watch that first video, there was just this one little white unit there that I had with a handful of ramen, a couple of cans. But the sense of security that gave me at the time was worth a whole lot more than the few bucks that I did spend on those items. And I've been living, although I had a job, I've been living on minimum wage, paycheck to paycheck for almost 10 years. And for 10 years, that time has not always been constantly filled with employment. There's been times that I've been out of work because of seasonal stuff, restaurant service industry in a place like Toronto, Canada here does depend on the summer. If you've got a patio, then that's the busier time, but people ain't sitting on that patio in February when it's minus 30. So sometimes there's been winter months when, the work has been scarce for everyone, not just me. So how have I sustained myself through those months was with whatever money I had. If I had like 20, 30 bucks, okay, let's go and spend 10 bucks on a dime bag of weed. Let's go buy 10 bucks worth of smokes, and then $10 worth of things at the dollar store. And the most amount of food I could get for that money was what I would buy. So if beans were 2 cans for a buck, then I'm going to buy 10 cans of beans. That's $5. Then if I buy 10 packets of ramen, which is going to cost me $2, that's 10 meals. Right, that's essentially 10 days worth of food, and I've still got a couple of bucks to maybe buy something else, a can of soup or some of these little chicken things here. And a lot of influence also from my pantry not only was MREs, it was prison prepping. And again, in prison you don't have refrigerators, you don't really have access to canned things, and you don't really have access to sort of make your own. I mean, you do make your own food, but you can't make preserves or long-term preps, and any food that you buy off of commissary is shelf stable stuff. and the majority of food and meals that are made in prison revolve around ramen. That is the staple of nearly every single prison recipe meal that you will ever eat will contain ramen in one way or another. And ramen and prison recipes are things that I've thrown a great deal of time into these videos, because at the time that was it. I didn't really know, as I said, it was making this up as I go. Still am making this up as I go, to be honest, but my future is a little bit uncertain. As I said, my time in Toronto may be coming to an end in the not so distant future. So again, another reason I don't want to prep, because I don't want to sort of pile stuff onto this that I'm not going to use or end up giving away. And there is a line: when does it stop being prepping and when does it become hoarding? And another sort of question you could also put to yourself is this prepping, or am I just grocery shopping? Because this is really all these items are just groceries, and rather than sort of buying groceries just for a week, I've bought groceries for months at time. And by doing that in advance, we've always got to eat, and stockpiling food isn't a stupid thing to do. And back in the days, when we were kids and younger, we had aunts, uncles, mums, dads, grandmas. They all had pantries, or larders as we used to call them in England, that were always kind of full of things that are preserves, crackers, long-term sort of items to see them through the winter months. And going back to the harvest festivals and stuff like this is when people, once the summer was over and you collected your crops, then you sort of tried to maintain it for as long as you could through the winter. And look into people like the Amish, is somebody I have mentioned as well, that these guys, they don't live on the grid at all. They've got absolutely no modern technology, and they preserve and prepare and do all sorts of things that we could learn on. And sometimes a simpler life is sometimes a better and sometimes easier life. And that is what I do with my preps, that I didn't really have time to go canning and make preserves. Pickling and stuff is something I know how to do because I've done it in my profession. But when my time was limited, this was how I prepped. And many people were like me, paycheck to paycheck. Some people have 2 or 3 jobs. How on earth can you prep when you've all got that much, you don't have much time? And then where are you going to put your preps if you don't got much space? And this is what micro prepping and sensi prepping to me was, that most people, certainly in big cities, there's going to be a dollar store within your close proximity. And these are all items that pretty much I have picked up at the dollar store, or luckily for me, there's a no frills next door, and this store is like literally 10-15 minutes away from where I live. I can walk there in 20 minutes. But carrying stuff back is a different matter, right? And certainly when you're carrying cans and stuff, you can, there's only so much you can carry. If you do have a car and stuff, then my suggestion would be, at this moment in time, if you can afford it, if you can spare it, you got $100 or a couple of $100, go and buy yourself similar items to this. And the majority of it, as influence from prison prepping, prison recipes, and how prisoners kind of use shelf-stable foods to kind of make themselves food in a very, very dire situation. Like, there's nothing nice about being in jail or being in prison, and the food they serve you is absolutely shit. So the only comfort you really do have is being able to make a little bit of food for yourself, and being able to make very, very different things with the same ingredients and making it taste different. It goes a long way to lifting the spirits in, a hostile environment and not so comfortable surroundings. And that might be for a lot of people when the shit hits the fan, whatever that shit hitting the fan may be. Being out of work, global pandemic hoaxes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, shit hitting the fan comes in many shapes and forms, and shit hitting the fan hits more often than not on a personal level. And as I said, guys, from experience of being out of work and having to survive and struggle, this is the way I've survived through those struggles, by going to the dollar store and buying many of the items that you can see before you, and have watched me unpack in countless videos. And this is another thing, that when you're a creator and you are doing things or trying to make a little bit of a YouTube channel, and maybe, dare I say, be entertaining, educational and informative. I don't know if really are many of those, but there are a few of you that have followed the thrift store prepper methods, and that's something I'm a little bit proud of, because this is a little system I created myself. This isn't something that I copycatted from other people, although I've taken influence from things. I tailored it for my own taste, and this is what you guys need to do. Start thinking for yourself, think about your own personal needs, your own personal beliefs, and start to prep accordingly. If it is simply putting items into the pantry like I do, or if it's preparing your mind with information and knowledge and trying to be a little bit around of what's going on around you, because that's another thing. Be mindful of your surroundings and adapt, evolve, and you will survive. And as I said, guys, it's simple, it's sensi, and by sensi I mean sensible. All this food's common sense. It doesn't need any real requirement, additional fuel to cook it. You know, all the canned food is just literally open and go. The reason I choose ramen over pasta and rice and dried beans and stuff like that, you can eat it out of the packet, a little bit of water, it will hydrate. Same thing with buying the minute oats, the oatmeal. This stuff is they're already cooked. You just kind of have to soak them in hydrate them. That doesn't take as much water, and also doesn't take as much fuel if you've got it in. Let's have a little close up here. There are some of the preserves that were sent to me kindly and graciously by Laurie. That was a wonderful care package, and I'm actually going to try and do a little recipe, a stew recipe using these things. So we've got the meat sticks, we've got some soup, and we've got the freeze-dried dehydrated vegetables there. So I'll do a little taste test on the soup, but my example would be that we've got the soup, we've got some sausages, mix that in with that, add some veggies, maybe throw a ramen in there. If you've got extra water, then that's going to make those 3 items go a lot further and give you a lot of nutrients. But what I was going to say is these little things, like this is a little kind of thermoglow liquid fuel thing. Now, you know, they're fucking brilliant. This will burn, I think, for 2 hours, I said, 2.5 hours, which is fantastic. But it might not be enough to get hot enough or sustain the heat to cook things like rice and cook beans. Now, I know many of you are homesteaders and many of you kind of great mum cooks and have your own little Paula Deen skills, and maybe each and every time you do prepare your meals in your fully operational stocked kitchen, it turns out perfect. Take all that away and try and imagine if you can do it perfectly using one of these, or using just a campfire that you've put together with wood that you foraged in a windy, cold, wet day. Is your food gonna turn out as good then? And if you can't prepare your food, you know, if you can't prepare your preps, then they're not really serving your purpose, right? And that's why I'm saying these things are fail-safe, that even if I can't get a heat source going, even if I can, you know, boil water, I can eat all of this without, you know what I'm saying? So common sense, guys, sensible. Think about what you're prepping, think about what you're doing, step back a little bit sometimes from yourself, and realize, you know, maybe influences that you've had might have not been serving you as well as you'd like to think. And all I've ever tried to do on here is bring you kind of an honest reflection of things that I do, and if or not this helps you or not, that's in the fate of the universe once it's out there. But I do know that these prepping videos have helped a lot of people, and I know a lot of you is the reason that you did sign up was because I was a thrift store prepper. But I'm, you know, thrift store prepping isn't not necessarily what I do. I prep at stores that are inexpensive, and the thrift store prepper was a little bit of a coin on the drugstore cowboy movie, if you can remember. Everybody's talking about me. But not only do I have, you know, I guess a skill pattern or formed this little prepping system, you know, I have a lot of knowledge and information, done an awful lot of research on New World Order conspiracies. You know, I was a kind of truther before they called us truthers. And just as I want to share my knowledge of thrifty prepping, I also would like to share with people that are close to me and who I've become accustomed to over these months and weeks of prepping. You know, putting together these prepping videos and building the Thrift Store Prepper channel and the Thrift Fam community. You know, I would like to share that information with you and hopefully feel that that will benefit you as much as this benefits you. And, you know, I do care about you, I do appreciate you, and as much as maybe you appreciate me. And, you know, sometimes it does get a little bit disgruntling, and may I even say somewhat upsetting when, you know, you do put some effort and stuff into trying to make shit video productions, and when nobody watches, then they really do become shit video productions. And, you know, my old man, bless his soul, one with the force he is now, always told me, son, you cannot polish a turd. So just to wrap up, and for nostalgic purposes, we're going to head back to the thrift store studio for a little bit more old school TSP for those of you who are missing it. And who knows, a little bit of nostalgia does go a long way to soothing the soul. So there you go, guys, back in the good old familiar old school surroundings of the thrift store studio, as it once was, pretty much, although it does look a little bit different now because we have done some rearranging. But hopefully you did enjoy that little trip down memory lane and a little bit of thrift store nostalgia for you. And it did sort of conjure up quite a few mixed feelings for myself, looking at it in its humble beginnings, and looking at it when it was fully loaded at the maximum sort of capacity that it ever got for me at around about the time of the year. And then, you know, once that kind of pandemic hit us and we were in that sort of stage of uncertainty, I got to be honest, it took me like about 2 or 3 weeks before I even did start tapping into my preps properly. Up until that point, I kind of snacked on the cookies, the granola bars, beef jerky, the meat sticks, all that kind of thing, just grab and go type of food, because, you know, I thought maybe, you know, we were being told in a couple of weeks it might all go back to normal. And by now I think you all realize normal's never coming back, guys. This is the world that we live in. But things are changing for me, so again, this is pretty much why I'm not putting the regular amount of prepping stuff on there, because I'm not doing it. And as I've already said, I prep so when the eventuality comes that I'm not able to do such things, I don't have to do such things, if you see what I mean. And this is what the purpose of prepping is, and we all prep for different reasons and concerns. Mine is because I believe that there are nefarious shadow agencies and governments at play that have not really our best interests at heart, and they are probably doing their best to make life as unbearable for us as they possibly can for their own entertainment and whims, I guess. But still, guys, this is what I'm saying. It's come from sort of humble beginnings. And last year we did expand around the 1 year mark. So okay, let's branch out and do lots more things. And, you know, over the course of time since those humble beginnings, I managed to bring you MRE reviews, bug out bag builds, eBay EDC builds, ramen recipes, sandwich shop quirks, all sorts of things, as well as a lot of truthful information, fiction decoding, and hopefully some fun and laughs along the way. And as I say, guys, it's an honest, real reflection of who I am, and that was what YouTube is about. I'm tubing me to you, and, you know, you watch me. I don't know exactly where I was going with that little description, but you get the picture. And, you know, the purpose of the internet was about information sharing, and all I'm doing is sharing information. And as I said, up to you what and if you choose to watch. And like I've said many times, guys, when you come to the thrift store, you never know what is in store, and sometimes you have to get out of a habit to just go into the same old aisles that you know in the supermarket, and you have to change it up, just like supermarkets and grocery stores do. They do change their configuration purposely to keep you on your toes, keep you thinking. And in a day and age where they are trying to dumb us down and try and control us with electromagnetic frequencies and other sort of nefarious mind control cult-like tactics, keeping you on your toes, keeping your wits about you, keeping your mind in brain working in alert is also a very good way to prep for physical and mental and possibly emotional battles. But you've got to eat at the end of the day, and you can't really function extremely well when you haven't got something in your belly. And if you're like me, and I know you are, a lot of you guys are preppers, and a lot of you prep way more than me, which makes me quite surprising why an awful lot of American women in the southern states of the United States who are also Donald Trump make America a great types, would listen to an atheist former illegal immigrant from England who now lives in Canada for their prepping advice. Maybe it's not for my thoughts and opinions, but maybe just the way I deliver it in my dulcet, beautiful British tones. But those guys are my thoughts in nostalgic track back where it started, where it comes from. And, you know, the year mark, there was some intention to expand the pantry and maybe even make a little bit more of use of the space that the pantry is now situated in, because there's a little bit of room there I could have expanded. And hopefully, you know, a year ago, I was like, I think mentioned, let's see how big the pantry is going to be in 2 years. But unfortunately, the pantry is deplenished a little bit also like my viewers. And sometimes life mirrors fiction, fiction mirrors life, virtuality is as reality does, so to speak. But guys, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. You know the drill. Shit Video Productions, TSP TV. See you in another one. Till then, keep it thrifty. And remember, be excellent to each other. The world needs us to be excellent to each other more than it ever has before.